It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. We in the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, and the state of California pay for a lot of different kinds of homeless housing with our tax dollars, whether it be Karen Bass's Project Inside Safe, LA County's A Pathway Home, Project Room Key, Project Home Key, the SROs in San Francisco's Tenderloin neighborhood. We pay for a lot of different kinds of homeless housing. We say in California, housing first. No matter what is going on in your life, we're going to give you four walls, and then we'll try to figure out what's wrong with you. And one of the effects of that is, and I don't know if you're totally aware of this, but whether it's the motels that were bought by Room Key, Home Key, or Inside Safe, did you know, were you aware that every single one of those de facto shelters, because of California state law, cannot enforce things like you bringing drugs into those places, you using drugs in those places? That's right. If you go back to when California passed their Housing First law in 2016, authored by Holly Mitchell,
quite frankly,
that Holly Mitchell, when she was in the California State Senate, they made it so there could be zero barriers into shelter. You know, it used to be in order to get into homeless housing, you had to clean up your act. We wanted to say, well, we want to meet people where they are. So what we have essentially done is we have provided and built and bought and leased a whole bunch of government-sponsored drug dens. And that might be a little harsh, but that's exactly what you and I have been paying for nearly a decade. Government-sponsored drug dens at the Motel 6, at the Sly Fox Inn, and anywhere else that Karen Bass, the Board of Supervisors of the state of California, says is housing for the homeless.
Chilly Willy.
Because we do not require that you try to get clean. There is a new bill that's working its way through the California Assembly, will probably not pass, but it's looking to change that state law that outlaws us from paying for recovery housing. And it's brewing up a battle against the world of we want you to be clean or we don't care if you're clean. Let's see what's going on here. Here's a fantastic report from our friends ABC7 in the Bay Area.
So far this year, there have been 192 unintentional overdose deaths in San Francisco. That's fewer than the 204 at this time last year, but it's still higher.
It's going down in San Francisco. It's going up in Los Angeles. You know, when we started talking a lot about the homeless problem on this radio station going back to 2016 with the Dr. Drew show, I very specifically remember the number was 3 people a day were dying on the streets in Los Angeles County. That number is now 7.
In 2021, and with overdose deaths still rising, some San Francisco leaders want to rethink how the city supports people who are battling addiction in government housing.
But a state law stands in the way of sober housing. ABC7's Monica Matt.
It is against the law for the state to use all the money that we pay for in our taxes that's supposed to go towards helping the homeless. It's against the law to use that money for sober housing, for sober living, for recovery housing. We cannot do that, according to Holly Mitchell.
ABC7's Monica Madden shows us the potential path forward and how a nonprofit is making it work.
Inside the Joseph McPhee Center in San Francisco's Mission District,
this place means a lot to me.
You'll find residents like Claudia Gonzalez.
So this is my room.
Who fights to choose her future every day.
I'm just grateful I have a roof over my head.
2 years ago, she was homeless, addicted to meth and alcohol.
Probably just could have said meth. We assume the alcohol.
Every single day I would just spend my days just thinking about how I'm going to get my next high.
Claudia's addiction drove her away from her family, living on the streets for 5 years.
The only time I actually had like a place to stay was when I would go to jail.
Her decision to get clean was prompted by a choice.
And the judge told me, okay, Ms. Gonzalez, I'm going to give you this option right now, prison or the program. But if you mess this program up and you come back here, you're going straight to prison.
This is the kind of thing we've been looking for. This is the kind of thing that a lot of people were motivated to vote for Prop 36 for. Give people the choice like we used to before Prop 47 decriminalized all the hard drugs. Put these people in drug courts and say you're going to treatment or you go into prison. Either way, you're not doing drugs anymore.
So I was like, I want the program.
After treatment, Claudia again found herself at crossroads before landing in the Way Out program through the Salvation Army.
I kept telling my sponsor, once my 6 months are up, I'm going back to my hometown. And once it got close to my graduation day, I ended up hearing about the Joseph McPhee Center. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to stay, and I think this is like the best decision I've ever made. I knew if I would go back over there, I would relapse.
Yeah.
On top of housing, the program offers drug treatment, career development and life skill courses, and an alumni support network.
A lot of incredible things and a lot of really great things have been done in places like that at the Salvation Army or the Union Rescue Mission in Los Angeles. But those are programs that cannot be funded with government dollars because they require you to get clean. And we don't want that in the state of California. I don't know where our priorities are.
I was able to find a job. We get more freedom, but we're also held accountable here. And I feel like that's what keeps me sober.
It's why other recovery advocates like Tom Wolf are pushing the city to have more models like The Way Out.
Before this became...
Oh, Tom Wolf. This guy's great. He's a recovery advocate in San Francisco. He's actually going to be on the John Phillips Show with me tomorrow. So tune in for that.
It's why other recovery advocates like Tom Wolf are pushing the city to have more models like The Way Out.
Before this became drug-free housing, this was an adult rehabilitation center, and it's where I went to rehab.
Wolf is also in recovery and speaks from experience.
They go into a hotel or into an apartment complex, and everybody around them is using drugs. How are you going to stay clean? How we ever stay clean in that environment? And that's the key thing that we've been missing all this time is...
So let's say that we do a Prop 36 on you, and we say, all right, you got to go into treatment, or you go into prison. And they accept treatment. That's great. That's incredible. When you get out of your 60 days or 90 days or whatever it is, then we transition you to some housing so you can try to get your life back together. Except all the housing that we provide are government-sponsored drug dens where everyone around you is on heroin, fentanyl, and or meth. How exactly are you supposed to stay clean? I mean... Look, these people are trying their hardest, but when you put it right in front of them, that is borderline torture.
How do we break that cycle of people falling into addiction and homelessness, whether one came before the other, it doesn't matter.
In the 2023 fiscal year, The Way Out reports 100% of participants were sober, housed, and employed a year after graduating the program.
It's incredible what some of these private organizations that we cannot fund with the government can get done with homelessness, whether it's Salvation Army or URM or some of the other incredible. And when I say nonprofit, actual nonprofits that they're only funded by donations.
I was curious if this type of model works so well, why isn't the city taking a similar approach? Well, the answer is complicated. For decades, San Francisco has embodied the philosophy of harm reduction.
Oh, boy. This is always fascinating because San Francisco is starting to turn the corner on this. In LA City and LA County, we doubled down. Eunice Hernandez and Barbara Ferrer both pay this organization called Homeless Healthcare Los Angeles, which is a real nonprofit that gets funded from local city money, local county money, and state money to pass out meth pipes in MacArthur Park in Santa Monica.
For decades, San Francisco has embodied the philosophy of harm reduction, which aims to prevent death and disease from inevitable drug use.
On top of that, San Francisco was one of the first major cities to take the housing first approach.
Yeah, that was a 1-2 punch that nobody needed. Housing first, and we're going to do everything we can to not get you off of drugs. Heck, at one point, San Francisco had started these safe consumption sites. where 18,000 people circled through to safely have someone watch them while they inject fentanyl into their veins. And of the 18,000, 18 were referred to treatment.
Give people a place to live and access to care, and good things will come. In 2016, the California legislature passed a bill requiring all state-funded housing programs to adopt Housing First policies.
That was the law written by Holly Mitchell.
Will.
She hasn't just been destroying LA County for the last 5 years. She made a lot of horrific impacts in the California legislature before that.
Stating that the use of drugs or alcohol cannot be cause for eviction.
Which means whether it's a motel for Inside Safe, Pathway Home, Project Room Key, Project Home Key, all this homeless housing that you hear about, including the homeless housing that was right next to the vacant that went up in flames last week, we are not allowed to require you to not bring in drugs and not do the drugs, which means you can do all the drugs you want.
Stating that the use of...
And unfortunately, it's why you see a lot of body bags going into those homeless housing units.
Stating that the use of drugs or alcohol cannot be cause for eviction. The result? Government housing where drug use is allowed.
That's what we have. We have government-funded drug dens, taxpayer-funded drug dens. How is this helping anybody?
When I was using heroin on the street, I hoped that somebody would come by and say, hey, we've got an apartment for you today. And I'd be like, oh, great. This is a place I can go to and be all alone with my drugs. I would be dead now.
He's 100% right. And I'm so glad that he's so honest about his past, because that guy turned his life around. And now he's trying to do that the same for so many other people. And California's literally getting in its own way with this false sense of compassion.
There are currently no explicitly drug-free permanent supportive housing facilities in the city. San Francisco's Department of Homelessness and Supportive...
All that thing, every time you hear about, oh, we're going to transfer you to permanent supportive housing. We're building permanent supportive housing. Permanent supportive housing does not require you to be off of drugs, and they don't enforce any drug laws when you're inside that permanent supportive housing. How exactly is that supportive?
San Francisco's Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing tells ABC 7 News that the city does not allow illegal drug use in permanent supportive housing, but says it is aware that some residents have active substance use disorders.
Yeah, they don't enforce it because we can't kick you out, so it doesn't matter if you bring it in.
And that the city aims to work with them to reduce the harm and ultimately end their use.
What we have is housing with no rules, and housing with no rules is just straight up chaos.
If somebody wants to get off drugs, we should have a placement for them where they can be away from drugs.
Assemblymember Matt Haney wants California to help pay for some drug-free permanent supportive housing. His bill would limit sober housing to no more than 25% of a county's total inventory of these types of units.
Wow, 25%. Throwing some crumbs at something that could solve the real problem, but I guess it's a step in the right direction, although this went before the legislature last year and it did not pass, and I do not expect it to pass this year.
But that's a one-size-fits-all where we are allowing drug use in every housing environment, and that is not appropriate for many people who have taken that step and do want to take that step to get off of and stay off of drugs.
That's a member of the assembly openly admitting that all the permanent supportive housing in the state right now, by law, allows drug use. All of the funding that has gone towards buying hotels, rehabilitating motels, buying an apartment building, converting it into homeless housing, permanent supportive housing, the $800,000 condos that Mike Bonin used to love to champion, all of it. We cannot require you to be clean. We cannot require you not to bring in the drugs. We cannot tell you to get the drugs out of there. There's nothing we can do.
Haney says he just wants to see more options, acknowledging it won't work for everyone.
We shouldn't require every single person to be fully off of and away from drugs if they're not in that place yet in order to be inside. The goal should be to be able to get everybody inside. But that's a one-size-fits-all where we are allowing drug use in every housing environment.
But for people...
And they're openly admitting it. I don't know if that many people are aware of this, but Your tax dollars are going to fund government-run drug dens,
where we are allowing drug use in every housing environment.
But for people,
every single one, the hotels, the motels, the permanent supportive housing, the shelters, if it's funded by the state of California, they can't do anything about the drugs. The private organizations, they can do whatever they want, but it's illegal for us to fund them with government dollars.
But for people like Claudia,
Get ready for work.
it's a choice that saved her life.
So much gratitude, to be able to have a second chance at life.
In San Francisco, Monica Madden, ABC 7 News.
Well, I'm certainly hopeful that this bill passes, so 25% of funding could be used towards actually getting people clean and keeping them clean in housing that requires sobriety. I'm not optimistic that that will pass. But I think the shocking thing about this is how cavalier our local electeds are with the fact that, yes, we have not only have we legalized drugs, we have made it illegal to put homeless people in housing that requires you to be clean. That's how far we have gone in the other direction. So now that you're aware of this, I'd just like to hear from you. You pay taxes. Your money goes to fund this. How do you feel about it? 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. Are you okay with your tax dollars going to fund government-run drug dens up and down the state of California? 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. Are you okay with your tax dollars, your hard-earned money, going to fund drug dens up and down the state of California? Because that's what homeless housing really is. 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. Get on the line right now. Tell me how you feel about your tax dollars going towards homeless drug dens throughout the state of California. 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. We're taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. California has been, for the last 9 years, not allowing any state money to go towards housing that requires sobriety. So all the permanent supportive housing that you see, all the Project Room Key, Home Key, the Inside Safe motels, they are pretty much government-funded drug dens. Are you okay with your tax dollars going towards all of this housing that does not require any level of sobriety? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's start with Dale in Culver City. Dale, hello.
Hey, Randy, thanks for taking my call. I have quite a bit of experience with sober living houses. I've been going into sober living houses and speaking and telling the guys in those places kind of what happened to me when I got sober. And every once in a while, those guys will realize that, this guy Dale seems like he kind of has his life turned around. When you tell someone that you used to be broke on Saturday after getting paid on Friday and then borrowing money and sitting in the bar all day and your life is miserable, and you tell them, now I get paid on Friday and I haven't cashed my check from the week before. I ended up getting my driver's license back. I got my own house. I got a contractor's license. People in those sober living houses will start to listen, and the sober living houses make the guys go to meetings, and then meetings come in there, and once they start going to meetings and realize that their life can get better, a lot of them end up staying sober and turning their lives around.
The potential is there. We see so many success stories all the time, but the state of California doesn't want to fund that for some reason. Maybe they want to change direction now, but that's what we've been doing for the last 9 years, and it doesn't make any sense. But I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing, and you're turning lives around. Dale, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. Let's go to Scott in Hollywood. Scott, hello.
Hi, Randy. Always good to hear you. I intended to call you to talk about the Karen Bass salary cut issue that we're not going to let go away. But the answer to your question about am I okay with money going to drugs and drug dens? No. I spoke to the deputy mayor of homelessness. I forgot her name. She's a doctor. I think she's got an Ethiopian name. And I asked her on a Zoom call, what is permanent? What is permanent housing? And I said, and she really didn't answer. She gave me a circuitous response. And I said, no, my question is, do these people ever get subjected to being evicted? Or is it, just permanent? Well, we're never going to evict anybody. That's what she said. So when they say permanent, I think they mean permanent dependency. And no one is talking about this. We have created, right under our noses, and no one even thought about this, we're creating a class of permanent dependence, not on the county, not on the state, but on the city.
Oh, you're totally right, buddy. It is insane. And the permanent supportive housing means there is no getting you out of homelessness. It means we're going to be paying for you your reward of the state for the rest of your life. And we might need that for some severely mentally ill people, but for the rest of them, we're not even giving them a chance at success because we think it's unfair and not equitable to tell people they got to get clean. It's unbelievable. Scott, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. 1-800-222-5222. Are you okay with the fact that your tax dollars in the state of California go to fund homeless housing that pretty much acts as government-sponsored drug dens? Because we are not allowed by state law to kick anyone out for drugs. So you can bring the drugs in, which a lot of people do, and you can do the drugs right in your taxpayer-funded permanent supportive housing. Are you okay with your tax dollars going towards government-run drug dens? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Get on the line right now. I want to take your calls next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. We're taking your phone calls right now at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. The state of California for the past 9 years has had housing first policies, first written and voted by Holly Mitchell. Housing first means that there can be no barriers to your housing, which means we cannot kick you out if you bring in drugs, which has, according to lawmakers, turned every single piece of homeless housing into a de facto drug den.
Where we are allowing drug use in every housing environment.
Whether it's permanent supportive housing, inside safe, project room key, home key, doesn't matter. You're paying for people to bring in drugs, do the drugs, and very often die from the drugs. Are you okay with your tax dollars going towards these government-run drug dens? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Jeffrey in Santa Ana. Jeffrey, hello.
Hey, Randy, thank you so much. I'm absolutely against the policy. Our politicians don't understand that there are two homeless crises. There's the homeless crisis of the person who's an addict living on the streets, and then there's the homeless crisis that you and I have to deal with. And the only reason why the politicians in Sacramento have any money to give out for these permanent supportive housing is because they sell us a bag of lies that we will take care of your homeless problem, Jeff, if you give us more money through measures, et cetera. So they take our tax money with the promise that they're going to solve the problem, and they don't. And they do something that John Wooden used to preach about all the time. He said, don't confuse activity with achievement. Don't confuse activity with achievement. And our politicians do things, and they rarely do they look back and say, you know what? With all the money we've spent that you've given us, we've accomplished nothing. And I have a fair amount of experience doing this. I used to be a volunteer case manager and board member for an organization called Second Chance OC. And we'd only work with people if they signed a contract with us saying that they've been clean for at least 30 days. Because without that, you will achieve nothing. And we've put people, and I've spoken to a fair amount of homeless people, and I said, what do you expect our city to do for you? And it's, yes, give us housing. I said, well, what will you do with that housing? And the answer is, well, it's a safe place where I can do my drugs, invite my friends to do drugs. And instead of solving that homeless problem that you and I have, which is making our streets clean, safe, and free from people who act in a very in a way that is unpredictable, we now exacerbate the problem by creating these dens that you're referring to. We build these high-density housing filled with people who are still addicted to drugs, and now we've taken another parcel of land. Instead of making it safe, we've exacerbated the problem. We need people in Sacramento who are not naive and stupid. That's my answer.
Well, not
Randy.
only that, Jeffrey, not only that, but a lot of the encampments that you see outside of this housing where you have the open air drug dens, you talk to some of those people, including one guy that started a fire under the 405 freeway a few weeks ago, and they already have housing. They have the housing, and they're still going to the encampments because we can't get them off the drugs.
You know, Randy, it's a endemic to our younger generations, but it is horrible with our population that's addicted to drugs. There have to be consequences for bad decisions that you make. And without consequences, you don't learn. You don't get into that sober living facility that Dale, one of your earlier callers, referenced. You know, anyone will tell you you have to hit a low point before you make decisions to help you with your addiction. And we're not, with these policies that we've proclamated, we are enabling those who are addicted to remain on their addictions until the ultimate act comes where they overdose. But even then, we're giving them all the medications so they can deal with their overdoses. They're not being allowed to suffer the consequences for their bad decisions, and that's why our numbers continue to go up and up with the number of addicts living on our streets.
You're totally right, and it's completely unacceptable, and we got to start changing the people that we put in office that enact these policies. Jeffrey, thank you so much for the call, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Randy.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Your tax dollars are going to fund permanent supportive housing, Inside Safe, Project Room Key, Project Home Key. All these programs cannot, by state law, kick you out if you're doing drugs in them, which has turned them all into de facto state-run drug dens. Are you okay with your tax dollars going to that? 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Hector in Southgate. Hector, hello.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Randy. I'm totally against that. They should not allow that. That should be banned. Those people should be locked up, put in prisons or mental institutions, and Holly Mitchell should be forced to live with them.
You know, that's a great suggestion because we want to house all of these people, but we also don't want to require them to get sober. So how many has Holly Mitchell taken into her house? How many has Janice Hahn taken into her house? How many has Lindsay Horvath taken into her place? How many has Karen Bass housed in her government-sponsored housing?
Exactly.
I think that's a proposal we got to do, buddy. I love it. Thanks so much for the call, Hector. Appreciate it. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. I would love to get a ballot measure going for that. Every single member of elected office that advocates for these homeless taxes, these homeless bonds, these homeless policies, they have to live with one. Do they got a spare room? You got to put someone in your house, and you cannot require them to be sober. We'll see how quickly those laws change. You know what? LA City Hall, which is only being used during the daytime hours, at nighttime, why don't we turn that into a homeless shelter and not require anybody to be clean and see how easy it is to kick them out in the morning? I love it. Let's get creative here. Let's go to Marie in LA. Marie, hello.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Randy. So I concur with everyone's opinion that, of course, that's an outrageous way to apply the money, and it's obviously not working. But I want to make two main points overall, if I may. One, first of all, I've been repeatedly injured. I live a normal life. I've never done drugs. I can't stand any of that. I don't smoke, drink, any of that. But I got kind of put into that system because I was in need of housing and all that. So I saw firsthand with my own eyes one of the most worst truths about a lot of these programs is the people that they put immediately in charge, the manager of the building or the caseworker or whatever, how utterly ridiculous and incompetent they are at their work. And so there's no oversight. And in my building that I currently live in, I was last living in Beverly Hills, and I was dumped on Skid Row. So talk about, it was so shocking and horrible. The 3 of the managers in a row stole all our rent money. You know, so, I mean, it's just ridiculous kind of people that get hired to even run these programs.
The turnover is so high. I'm imagining that the hiring standards are so low for the people that they put in charge of these housing units. I'm not surprised at all what you say, but I'm so sorry that happened to you. But I'm glad you're sharing your story, because that's another aspect of this that needs to get out there. The nonprofits, the service providers, the people that we put in charge of this, sometimes they're the ones victimizing the homeless too.
Yeah. And then the other real quick point overall is the supply of drugs we all know is coming through the border. And so not handling the border both on the federal and particularly the state and city level properly is like having a big water leak, and all you're doing is running around with towels, sopping up the water, and all you have to do is turn off the faucet.
Well, and you look at our sanctuary policies, who do they really protect? They make sure that we don't deport drug dealers in places like LA and San Francisco, drug dealers that are in the country illegally from Honduras. We don't want to deport them. They're the ones we want to protect. So you're right. We're creating an impossible situation where there's an endless supply of drugs. It's getting cheaper than ever. People get needlessly, unbelievably addicted to where it's the only thing they can think about. And we have every opportunity to enable them to continue doing it, which leads to all the crime that we see, because people got to maintain their habit, and we are not helping people.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for the call, Marie. I really appreciate you sharing your story. There's an aspect we got to get out there. Who do you think gets put in charge of all this homeless housing? Because this isn't like Union Rescue Mission. This isn't like the Salvation Army. These people that run these units, they know everyone's doing drugs in there, but they don't care because they get paid by the head whether these people are doing well or not. There is such a grift going on. There's such a racket going on. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Are you okay with your tax dollars in the state of California being put towards permanent supportive housing, Project Room Key, Project Home Key, Inside Safe, all programs that do not, by state law, allow you to kick someone out because they're doing drugs, which means we have state-run drug dens. Are you okay with that? 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. If you're on hold, stay on hold. We get to your calls next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's get back to the phones and go to Richard in Newport Beach. Richard, I'm jealous.
Hey, Randy, how are you? Listen, your callers are all very sincere. They don't like it. Everything's, upside down. But here's the deal. As long as we keep voting for politicians that are weak-kneed and emotional driven, it's never going to change. I mean, it's never going to change. You have to do the hard thing. And the hard thing is make these people accountable. Giving a drug addict a house is like the worst thing you can do. Everybody knows that, except the dumb politicians that we keep electing. So, unfortunately, one party is full of these dumb politicians. Everybody knows it. And until that changes, especially here in California, I'm afraid nothing will change. And I'll even tie this into your earlier segment about the high-speed rail. These people, they don't care about the project. They care about their friends getting the positions that will last forever because the thing will never be built. Everybody knows that. So, and as the high-speed rail is a perfect example, so is the homeless consortium. It's been going on for decades. Everybody that works in that business is getting rich. Nothing's getting done.
You're so right. And I think what we all need to do, because we got another election coming up next year for a whole bunch of local, countywide, and statewide positions, is got to have a checklist. When you're researching candidates, find out what exactly is their position on housing first and giving people with a drug addiction a house. What's their opinion on the high-speed rail? And if you disagree with that, don't vote for that person. Vote for somebody that agrees with the most important things. It doesn't matter about national issues. These are very important local issues that affect your life.
Yeah, that's correct. You have to step away from your party and look at the policy. It's never been more important than it is now. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse.
You're totally right, buddy. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it in beautiful Newport Beach. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Hey, if you ever miss an episode of this show, make sure you get the podcast. It's real easy. You can go to kabc.com/newsblitz or search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcast, whether that's iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I also want to make sure, although most of you probably already are, that you subscribe to The John Phillips Show, because not only is The John Phillips Show great every single day, but I've been filling in solo all week, and this afternoon I talked with LA City Councilwoman Tracy Park, and it's a fantastic interview, and you got to hear what she has to say. So search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, and then you'll hear the Tracy Park interview. Maybe later this week we'll play it on this show, because it's really important what she had to say about a whole bunch of issues facing people in Los Angeles. Thank you all for listening to the show. It's such a pleasure to do it for you. I'm back for another 3 hours filling in for Johnny, and then back here at 5 for another News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.